for social media channels are posted in the description below. Our guest today on the Britain's Community Channel podcast is Northampton's University graduate, social media consultant, and founder and business owner of Content for Social. My guest today is James Anstey. Welcome to this podcast and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Tell me more about Content for Social.
So Content for Social, as you described there, really is it's a social media, consultancy agency. Something that I started when I left university, with the idea that I wanted to support those smaller and medium-sized businesses with their social media content, those that perhaps couldn't afford, to splash out on big monthly retainers. That was the idea really to start with. It was going to be Northamptonshire based only, as that's where I kind of grew up and where my connections were. And now it's kind of as it was, but has grown maybe into something a little bit different.
Have you supported any community-based companies, as you've said you're Northamptonshire based?
Yeah, so I would say that since I started, probably 60 to 70% of the businesses have all been from Northamptonshire. So there's been local sports clubs, there's been local like small businesses. For example, there was one guy who did kind of home construction and things like that. But then also there's been some kind of charities locally. So I've done a little bit of work with a charity that's kind of supported by the university. They do work out in Africa, but they're kind of, attached to the university in that way. So yeah, so really it's been fairly community based. And I'm glad that it could be that at the start. But as with these things, I think naturally as it grew, and you meet more people, that the opportunities expand elsewhere as well. So I've got a little bit of work that's down in London, some that's up in Stamford. So a little bit more dotted around now, but yeah, Northamptonshire is certainly at the core of Content for Social, I would say.
So it's mainly community based, but you're going a bit further afield. What was it more of a need or an ambition to start the company?
I think to start the company was an ambition. I think throughout my time at university, I worked for a few different marketing companies based in Northampton, fairly small companies. So I got a lot of hands-on experience quite early, which meant that when it got to the end of my university degree, I thought, well, I'm quite lucky with the opportunities I've had while at uni. If I don't try it now, when I don't have, certain other pressures and responsibilities, I can still live at home and really, build this from the ground up. I might regret it if I don't try. So really, it was an ambition, not necessarily to be this, business owner who has their own office or anything like that. It was more just an ambition, to have a bit more flexibility around, my working life after leaving university.
Fair play to you. A bit more flexibility, freedom, and obviously to do what you want in a job and that you love. How was your journey from graduating in Northampton University to starting Content for Social?
It was tough. I was lucky in the sense that I had part-time jobs that I had throughout university and then was able to continue after I graduated. So, they acted as my, security blanket, and Content for Social was then something I could build on the side of that. But it is tough because, I think I perhaps not thought it was going to be easy, but, I obviously graduated in July. It wasn't until November really that my first client came on board. And it wasn't really until maybe the April after that I had enough going on that I could walk away from my other jobs and then, only have Content for Social as my income. So, that process took 8 months. And of course, it causes sometimes pressures and stress on, money stress or stress on, work balance. Because at that point, every spare second almost you would put into Content for Social or building that business idea. But at the same time, I'm glad I did it. And actually, the reward for putting that hard work in has been well worth it. So,
because from what you're saying there, you've tried to give yourself a smooth transition from your jobs to working for content for social, which you run. But you've also mentioned work-life balance. How do you manage a good work-life balance?
I think, yeah, I mean, it's certainly not easy. I think that, at the end of the day, um, work, particularly when you work for yourself or you work from home, as we all are at the moment, the work side of the balance is going to get the focus and the priority, because, it's, for a lot of us, obviously, it's the thing that pays the bills and the thing that we rely on. I think I find it easier now, maybe the work-life balance side of things. But always, I'll have days in the week where I'm working till 6 p.m., 7 p.m., maybe I'm starting earlier. But the way I look at it is, okay, although not every day there's a balance, overall it works out in that sense, because, like last week, I was able to go, actually, you know what, I fancy having the day off. So I took last Tuesday off and, didn't focus on work at all. So I guess there's benefits and negatives to doing something like this, and it balances out overall. I think the hardest thing probably is the holiday element, in the sense of going abroad or physically going on holiday. Whenever I go on holiday, I have to take my laptop. I usually have to work a little bit. So, I don't necessarily get the balance from that point of view. But I guess with that, the way I've looked at it is I'd rather go away 3 times and have to work each time than go away once and not, if that makes sense. So I think it's about what works for everybody. But I'm certainly no expert on work-life balance, and I still need to improve it sometimes, or change my focus sometimes. But yeah, it works for me at the moment in terms of where I am in my life, I guess.
Because you've got to try and, even from my experience of a business background, trying to manage a good work-life balance, you've got to make sure that obviously you're devoting enough time to the project that you're working on, but you need to make sure that you take regular breaks and have the odd occasional day off. Because from a personal experience, if you don't manage the work-life balance, your body's just going to stop and it's just going to get on top of you. And you've got to try and manage working at the projects you want to do, managing your time, but also making sure you're in good health.
Yeah, absolutely.
By looking after yourself.
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well.
And I think it's, I don't necessarily want to use the word burnout, because maybe that seems a little bit, not extreme, but I think, like you say, you run the risk of, if you every day for 6 months, even if it be a weekend or a day that theoretically you're off, you still log on to emails or you spend 5 minutes looking at something, you never really then switch off. And I think that's the thing I find the hardest, is switching off completely from it, because, I know if I'm not focusing on it, then nobody else is, kind of thing. But yeah, absolutely, you're right. I mean, it's about, understanding what you need at the end of the day. What works for one person will be different for another, but I believe that everybody needs some downtime, whether it be a day here and there, or whether it be, a good 3-week chunk to recharge.
Definitely agree with you on that. Do you have any memories or memorable experiences while starting content for social?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple that stick out in mind. One would be, so when I started content for social and then graduated, the university invited me back to kind of run part of their business entrepreneurship program. And that's quite a memorable moment, because I think, when you start a business, or you go self-employed, or actually even if you start, in what would be a regular job with a company, when you've graduated, sometimes you feel a little bit out of your depth, because you've got the knowledge, but you've never really applied it anywhere. So I don't know, I had a point in time where, not I felt a little bit like a fraud, but it was kind of, well, how can I prove that I know what I'm talking about? And, to be invited by the university to go and kind of give that talk, and the reception I got and the way people are engaged really gave me a big confidence boost. So that's a huge thing that sticks out in my mind. And I guess the other thing is, the first client that I landed, and then when that first invoice came through, in terms of being paid, my mindset was, one person's now paid for your services. That's the hardest bit, kind of thing. If one person thinks you're worth the value, then you can find others the same. So Yeah, there's probably lots of things that stick out, some positive, some negative. But in terms of the positive memories along the way, they're probably two early on that stick out.
You mentioned allowing the university to give you talks, and you went along the lines of feeling like a fraud. Well, that kind of it resonates as imposter syndrome with a lot of people, myself included.
Mm.
That even though you have the skills and the knowledge and the experience, that it's kind of like you feel a bit kind of, I don't know, awkward or a bit. See what I mean?
Yeah. I know
Yeah,
exactly what you mean, and I mean, there's two parts to it. I think it's firstly, if you're still studying or if you've only just finished studying, that's an element. But also, I think age plays a factor as well. I think if you're somebody who, if you choose to try and start a business or go freelance or something along those lines, and you're the youngest person in the room when you go somewhere, or you start a company and you're the youngest person in the meeting or something like that, age shouldn't really matter too much, but I think it does play an impact. And there's always this underlying assumption that somebody who's older will know more, and while they may have more experiences, it doesn't mean your voice, I guess, is not as valid. But I think you're right. I'm sure it's common with lots of people, whatever they choose to kind of go down the path of from a career perspective, that they get that feeling of almost having to prove themselves in that environment.
definitely. What are the aims of content for social?
Good question, and to be honest, not one I can answer easily. I think I could sit here and go, it's to have this many clients and earn this amount of money and that kind of thing. To be honest, given the current situation we're in, it's to keep what I have or as close to what I have at the moment from a amount of work and clients I work with perspective. But going forward, really, the idea used to be that I would start this, employ a couple of people, maybe get an office space, employ a few more, and have like a proper, what would be on paper a proper business. Actually, I think now the ambition more is to have still people I perhaps work with as part of a team that I can use as and when I need. But actually, I have clients that allow me to work from anywhere in the world. I want that flexibility, but of course, I'll make sure I do a good job and give something back. But yeah, I mean, the aim is to grow it in a way that still keeps the flexibility. If there's more money and more opportunities involved and to work with bigger companies, then great. But like I say, the lifestyle element, I think at the moment is the most important thing for me. I'm sure that will change as I get older and have more responsibilities and buy a house and have a family and things like that. But for now, small growth works for me, really.
Definitely, I'd say small growth and survival, especially with the conditions and the times we
Yeah.
are now. You've got to kind of appreciate what you've got. Who are your target audiences?
I think from a direct services point of view, really it's small to medium-sized businesses or charities or organisations. I mean, the good thing is being in marketing and social media, there aren't that many people that don't need marketing on social media. They might already have something in place, but it's kind of a fundamental part of every business or organisation. So from that aspect, my I guess target audience is quite wide, and I've always tried to be of the mindset that rather than say, okay, these are my services, this is how much they cost, I'd rather go, okay, what do you need, what is your budget, and how much value can I give you for that budget? So target audience is very wide. I guess the ideal customer is a medium-sized business. They perhaps don't have a marketing team in place, or they have somebody who works part-time, and then I can kind of fill in the gaps or add areas of expertise that maybe that individual doesn't have. And typical example, one company I work with now, they have a marketing manager, but they don't really have a social media and content background. It's much more, how many leads can we generate through, doing this and that. It's not really the creative element. So I work with that company to support their marketing manager a few days a week. So yeah, something like that would be ideal, really.
So you provide a flexible, from a company sense, in the sense tailored to the person's budget and their specific needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
What products and services do you provide to clients?
So it varies quite a lot. I mean, I guess the main services are social media strategy, physically creating content, whether it be images, video, audio. Then there's other elements of kind of marketing strategy that I do, whether it be copywriting, whether it be email marketing. But then there's also elements such as, the university where I do presenting and pitching and things like that. So it varies quite a bit. I have some businesses that I work with where all I actually do is take some of the content they already have, repurpose it, and put it out on their social media channels. So, what I'm actually doing there is far different to a company where I run their whole social media strategy. But yeah, the fundamental element is, I guess, social media and content, I guess, as it says on the tin. But it can vary quite a lot. And I've always tried to have the viewpoint that I don't necessarily want to be, filling out reports, for example, doesn't, spike a passion as such, but it's part of the job. And if a company only needs that for the time being, then later down the line, if you do a good job, they might use you for something else. So yeah, there are some services that are across the board, but some that are very specific.
Exactly. What are your strategies for managing during lockdown?
I think you could say luckily or not luckily. So I think people that have really struggled during lockdown, I mean, everyone struggled in different ways, but if you're somebody who only has one income, then if that income goes, you then have nothing, obviously. I guess the benefit of what I have is that because I have different clients, if one goes, there's still other things in place. But at the same time, you are maybe a bit more vulnerable because sometimes, if companies haven't got much money, then marketing is seen as a luxury at that point. So the main strategy really was to, I guess, prepare for the worst. And I'm still kind of in that phase now. I've been surprised by how good it's been in comparison to how bad it could have been. And I think I've lost one client due to lockdown, which, I'm grateful for it only being that, really. But, the strategy going forward is, I guess, to be as flexible as possible. If a client comes to me and says, our situation's changed, I don't think it's sensible on my part to then say, okay, we can't work together anymore. It's about having a conversation and saying, okay, well, what can you afford for the time being? And it's about being as proactive as possible from my side to look for new clients and new opportunities. But I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said survival. I mean, it's from my side, it's keeping as much as I've got in place as possible until the end of the year. And then we go again in 2021.
So in a nutshell, it's being about obviously surviving as a company, but also being proactive in trying to be self-sufficient and generate leads for specific companies that you need in order to get more clients.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, luckily enough, so when that one client dropped off, as soon as kind of lockdown happened, so I think that they officially stopped working with me in April, I managed to pick up another client in April, which didn't quite, balance out what I'd lost, but balanced out maybe 60% of what I'd lost. So that's been a big help. There hasn't been anyone else new that's come on board since then, but actually, lots of businesses at the moment are probably in the same boat of just trying to survive. So I'm not expecting too much in terms of new work for the rest of this year, really. But the goal is, like you say, to keep being proactive and messaging people and having a presence there so that maybe in 3 months, 6 months time, when they do need help, you're kind of the first name that pops into their head.
You're the first port of call to go to. What local community projects have you been involved in?
So there's been a few. So the first main one I can think of is Northamptonshire Sailing Club. I did some work with them very early on, and they were running basically I guess community kind of fun day, but also a taster day. So I did some work with them. I know somebody who's kind of got a role there, so I gave my time to them, and because it was early on, for me it acted as a good case study, so I didn't charge anything for that. At the moment, there's a charity that I work with, and I give them 5 hours a month, I guess for free of my time to use as they need from a social media and marketing perspective. And then there's been a few other bits and bobs that have been, I guess, very, very local. So a few things in the village where my parents live that have been again, similar kind of thing, like a charity event or a community fun day kind of thing that I've helped out where I can from a marketing side.
So it's kind of, besides your work marketing, but also kind of networking and communicating with communication and collaboration with people, so that they get to know you as a company, but they also, if they need help, they know where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I always like to try and, if somebody comes to me and goes, I've got this problem with the business at the moment, okay, it might be that I'm not the person who can solve it, but hopefully I know somebody who may be able to help, kind of thing. So yeah, I think, I'm sure you know this with the things you do as well. But at the end of the day, your network you build up is key, whether that be just on a local level or even further afield than that. So yeah, I mean, the community projects work from that point of view, but it's nice as well to give something back because I think if you've had a good opportunity with something and you can use that to help somebody else who, without you, they wouldn't be able to pay for that service is it's a great feeling, really.
What social media channels can people use to contact you? These will be posted in the description below if you're interested in any of James's services.
I think the best one really is my own LinkedIn. Also, content for social are across Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and across the board, really. But yeah, it would make sense to if you're going to contact me, to go through my personal LinkedIn. And it's the kind of thing where, from my side, I'm not the kind of person that is going to go, right, you want to have a conversation, how much is that going to cost you? I work with lots of people to do a free analysis of their current social media or their current website or that kind of thing. No obligation, just something I can do as a helping hand. So I guess if people would be interested in something like that as well, then that's certainly doable.
Definitely. So it allows you to provide a first impression before client decides to come with you, which is a good way of them to getting to know you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry, I was going to say. I think that some people, some people don't know what's wrong. So it's all well and good going, oh, I can do this and this, but if they don't know, one, how that's going to benefit them, or two, what they could be doing better at the moment, then I guess it's harder to sell to them. But actually, there'll be lots of businesses out there that, even with flexibility that I try and offer, still won't have the funds or won't want the solution of using an outside company. So at least if I can say to you, okay, well, here are 5 areas you can work on, that individual can go and work on them themselves and try and improve those areas without incurring any cost. So.
Definitely. What skills have you gained from running content for social?
Where to start, really? No, I think, there's the obvious ones that are industry specific. All of my, I guess, marketing skills across the board have improved as you work on more projects and come across different problems and things like that. But, when I look at, I guess, the main skills that I think have been tested the most during that time, I guess perseverance is a big thing. Because, like I say, it probably took 8 months, which for some people, they might not think it sounds like a lot. And actually, I know it takes other people a lot longer to get a business up and running. But yeah, it was hard to stay motivated sometimes during that time. Time management, again, a big thing. I guess another big one is empathy, which might sound a bit strange, but the sense of the more businesses you work with, the more people you find out, what's going on with them, what problems they incur, that kind of thing. You need to learn to be, of course, it's about you and your business from your side, but you need to be empathetic towards other people's issues and why they might not have been able to do what you wanted them to do. And yeah, I guess the final one is then hard work. Don't get me wrong, university is certainly hard work. I probably learned the true meaning of hard work doing this, but I can't complain too much because I'm happy with how it's paying off at the moment.
So the skills you'd definitely say are empathy, perseverance, determination. What suggestions would you give to someone who wants to progress into a social media consultant?
I mean, I think, although I, early on tried it myself, I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that without working for the other companies. Although I was at university at the time, by the time I'd finished university, I'd been with one of those companies for pretty much 3 years. So my recommendation would be definitely try working for yourself. I think there's lots of benefits to it, but also at the same time, I guess, admit where your knowledge is at the moment. There's nothing wrong with going and working with companies for a bit first, or even while you're trying to then set up on your own, because it's better to, I guess, lay the groundwork and get the knowledge to where it needs to be than like a lot of people do. And we've all seen it online where people try and sell you something without actually having done the work or learned about it themselves. So yeah, I mean, the main thing is make sure you know your stuff. The second thing is make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If you're going, well, I want to do as little work as possible for as much money as possible, then starting any kind of consultancy where you work for yourself, but I know from a social media side, it's not necessarily the right thing to do, because you've certainly got to put a lot into it at the start without getting too much out. So they're probably the two things. Make sure you know your stuff, and make sure you're going into it with the right reasons, because it's going to be hard work.
Definitely. So knowledge and being prepared for what you're going to eventually set up and start. Yeah. Do you have any final words?
I guess just thank you for the invite to come and talk about this today. And if there's anybody out there listening that wants I guess advice on not even anything social media related, but something about starting up your own business and some of the issues or things to think about, I'm happy to help people where I can, because it can be quite a lonely place when you start out on your own if you don't have other people that have been and done it or are doing it at the same time. So yeah, I'm there if people have any questions.
Thank you very much, James, for the podcast. If you are interested in seeing any more of these podcast sessions, please like and subscribe to my channel, and also visit the Britain's Community